Of course, the Ballon d'Or we know only ever goes to the winners of either the Champions League or the World Cup or makes that. So it's got to be Bayern winning something. But I would say that if they did, then absolutely he's going to be the guy that wins it.
So welcome to EuroLeagues. Coming up, we're going to ask whether Nick Woltemade is proving his critics in Germany wrong. Sometimes maybe good. We'll talk about Gennaro Gattuso with Italy. And would you believe it, the Faroe Islands still in with a chance of making the World Cup after 3 straight wins. We'll speak to one of their key players who was back at work behind his desk at his office job at 8 a.m. the next morning after the game against Czech Republic. That is the sort of work ethic that Guillem Balague, Mina, Rzouki and Rafa Honigstein can relate to. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, good evening. Plenty to get into this week. We're going to start by talking about Jean-Philippe Mateta. Have you all seen this row he's having with Wilfried Zaha? We'll get to that in a moment. But first, I want to talk about what a great story this is, Mina, because he scored his first international goal for France at the age of 28, his first call-up. So he scored against Iceland. I love these stories. We love young players coming in and making a brilliant impact on their debut. But for someone at 28 who never really had a hope of playing international football to come in and score straight away, it's a brilliant story.
Yeah, absolutely a brilliant story. And it kind of gives you hope that you can do it at any age. So maybe, John, there's life for you yet. Maybe one day we can all hopefully fulfill our dreams and become the football players that we always talk about.
Are you laughing at John? Are you laughing
You're
at
laughing
John?
at his dreams. You're laughing at his dreams.
She thinks I'm still 28. I'm all for it. I'll take that, definitely.
Look at the pessimistic guys just waiting, calling you old, whereas I quickly refer to you as just another 28-year-old. But it is a great story. And there's a lot of them, actually, a lot of these guys who have grown up and perhaps peaked at a later age.
In fact, that was a good exercise to do, to look into that. What were the old guys that made it? And in Spain, I'll tell you 3 names that have got a particular story. Puskás. He was a Spanish international at 34. Of course, after playing with Hungary and leaving Hungary, he couldn't play for 2 years, banned by FIFA. Eventually played for Spain, 4 games only. Javi Navarro started as a lorry driver and made his debut as 32, yet all having won a lot of things with Sevilla. And the most recent one is Joselu, who made his debut 2 days before becoming 33, made his debut actually against Norway and scored 2 goals. And then within a period of a year and a half, he won the Champions League, the Nations League, and the European Championships, just like that, at 33.
So that's the good part of the story. That's the romantic part of the story. Let's get to the row. Rafa Honigstein, what have you made of this row with Wilfried Zaha? So it starts with these comments that Jean-Philippe Mateta made when he got the call up. He said, "I always believed at Crystal Palace, right at the start, when I wasn't even playing, I spoke about the France team in the dressing room and I had teammates like Wilfried Zaha who were laughing. They said that I was mad to think about the France team when I wasn't even playing at Crystal Palace. But I responded saying that it was my objective and that I simply had to play to show what I could do." So he mentions Wilfried Zaha there, who's now at Charlotte FC in the MLS. Fair to say that Wilfried Zaha, not happy about his name being mentioned by Mateta. This is what Wilfried Zaha had to say this morning.
No, I'm sorry, because my head's on fire. I've got to clear up this Mateta situation because he doesn't want to. I spoke to him, he doesn't want to, he's okay with it. And this just shows me that, see the times when I was playing at Crystal Palace and all these people were watching me, it's clear that they weren't happy for me on the pitch. I'm passionate and all that stuff, but I'd never bully someone or say someone won't make it here or won't make it at all or nothing like that. So it's like, it's disgusting when I see someone that I thought was a friend do that. His chances of playing for France, way back when he wasn't playing for Palace, as friends, we laughed it off, but we were joking around that it's going to be difficult, especially with Benzema, all these different players playing in those positions. But we never ever once said you're never going to make it. Wouldn't you be shocked if this person asked this to 10 people? I swear to you, 10 Crystal Palace players were there when this conversation was had. Wouldn't you be shocked that this person has made out like there's some sort of hate from me when there was 10 people? Or is it because with Zaha is the biggest name? I do not understand. It's disgusting. I've never hated on anyone. So now I'm getting messages, "Oh, you're not laughing now at Mateta." I couldn't care less. Well done to him. I even congratulate him publicly on his posts. So to hear that story come out, it's like, what the did you dislike me the whole time for you to come out with this, your come-up story? I'm going to use Zaha as my come-up story. I don't have football friends. This is why I keep myself to myself, because how's he going to do that?
Wow. Rafa, what do you make of this? It's bizarre, isn't it, that he's got so upset about this? It sounds like in the dressing room, they were just having a bit of fun, saying, you got no chance, there's so many players ahead of you, you're not playing for Crystal Palace. But he's really taken this to heart that his name's been mentioned by Mateta.
What's French for overreaction? Didn't seem that bad a comment, and maybe more said in jest or as a sense of, I showed everyone, and I don't quite get where the animosity and the hate and the anger comes from. Zaha said in this interview that he doesn't have any friends in football. Maybe because he takes things very, very seriously or too seriously. I think it bears no relation to the offence or perceived offence. I think Mateta was just making a point that people didn't believe in him. He happened to mention one name in particular, and he's taken it very badly. But I don't see what the fuss is really.
Why would Mateta need to mention the name? Like, imagine we just laughed at, John, like potentially fulfilling his dreams of becoming a football player at this age.
Did.
But imagine imagine he's now going to do.
And you mentioned him by name as well.
Yes, I know. It's terrible because he is so going to remember this in his next interviews when he leads England to the World Cup. But like, let's just imagine it. Then he says, "Oh well, I don't know. Rafa Honigstein was laughing at that point." You're kind of like, well, it's all of us. So why was there? It's just a joke. Why are you mentioning my name? And he said that he's received messages, and you kind of feel like a lot of people just read headlines and not necessarily look into it and just be like, "Oh, so were you that guy? Were you that hater who was bullying him the whole time?" And I just feel like you could have just said we were. I just don't see the reason for mentioning names, so I can understand Zaha being upset about it. I guess the rant just seems a bit too much, but I would be upset too if my name's pulled into something that was supposed to be in jest.
I don't care about what Zaha thinks of Mateta, Mateta thinks of Zaha. But it was I listened to Zaha's rant 2 or 3 times, and it's fascinating if you look into it in detail. He talks about 10 other players, or 10 in total, laughing at Mateta when he wasn't even started for Crystal Palace. I think Mateta has used that as a fuel to push his career. So he's got to thank Zaha and everybody else for what they've done for him. Then, can Mateta point out at any change in room in the history of his career where he mentioned something like that and people will go, yes, you've got a chance. Good boy, work hard, you'll get there. Or would he get banter? He will, of course, get banter. It's all like a storm in a teacup. But most of that Zaha said came out, it's interesting stuff for analysis. He says, why mention me? Didn't he like me all that time? That's why I keep myself to myself and all that, don't have friends in football. Really? So the explosive cocktail at some point was just gonna go off, because you had on one hand somebody that doesn't trust anyone in Zaha and somebody else that takes everything far too seriously. So it's just a glimpse into how these elite players think. Do you know what it comes to my head? The little kids, because they will be the rest of their career. The rest of their career, they have to be protected because they're far too sensitive. The little kids.
You make a good point there, though. It reminded me of Michael Jordan in that documentary, where every time he achieved something, he needed someone to insult him or to wind him up, to motivate him. And I think Mateta's used this as fire, so it's actually helped him. But let's move on to another player now who scored his first international goal over this international break. Newcastle United's Nick Woltemade scoring for Germany as they beat Northern Ireland 1-0 on Monday. Rafa Honigstein, what a way to answer his critics, because he's now scored, I think I'm right in saying, his last 4 games for club and country. And remember that the Bayern board member and legendary former player Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, he spoke a few weeks ago, basically insulting him, talking of insults, saying, I can only congratulate those in Stuttgart, his former club, for finding, and he says, I'll use quotation marks here, an idiot who paid that much money, talking about the amount of money that Newcastle paid for him, because we certainly wouldn't have done that in Munich. So how big was this international break for Nick Woltemade?
Yeah, it was huge, because he was booed in the previous break when he, along with other German players, must be said, did not cover himself in glory, especially in that 2-0 defeat against Slovakia. He didn't look as part of the team. He was very isolated. But of course, since then he started scoring for Newcastle, and he started with his first ever goal, a winning goal for Germany against Northern Ireland. And I think it's really changed the mood completely, because this is a very likable guy. I mean, maybe some people don't like the fact that he's really into fashion, and maybe that's seen as, somebody who should pay more attention to football. Things can be quite conservative at times. But he's a very nice guy, and he's a guy that now scores in the Premier League, and he's a guy that clearly has, through no fault of his own, commanded a transfer fee that is a big debate, especially because Bayern, who like to get things their own way, were, I don't want to say on the receiving end, but of course missed out because they didn't want to go all that high to the kind of amount that Newcastle were prepared to pay. So this is really about Bayern sort of saying, well, we always pay the right money and this is too much money, rather than an insult, I think, towards him. But it didn't help him, I think, in his development. But now I think there is a sense that, this guy has really arrived. Now, will he be the answer for Germany as far as the World Cup is concerned? Can he fill that huge void that has been there since Klose retired, really? That is the big question. And I think for that reason alone, even Rummenigge and everyone else will hope that his development and his success at Newcastle will continue, because we need to have a centre forward of real class who can lead the line effectively.
Yeah, Julian Nagelsmann played it down a bit, didn't he? He mentioned all the strikers that are injured at the moment. But if you were to make a prediction, Rafa, do you think he would start at the World Cup next year?
I don't think we have any other centre forwards.
He was mentioning Kai Havertz, for example.
Yeah, Kai Havertz, of course, has played that role quite effectively. And Germany at the Euros with Havertz in that role looked good, even though he himself wasn't able to have the same kind of impact directly in front of goal. But I think his movement and his positioning play helped other players a lot. I think Woltemade is obviously a completely different centre forward, but I'd love for Havertz to be fit and be an alternative. But I think as of now, as far as sort of more orthodox centre forwards is concerned, Woltemade is on his own, because Niklas Füllkrug is the closest we have to another sort of number 9 in the true sense, or in the original mould, is of course having a very hard time at West Ham, and has no guarantee to get back into the Germany squad either. So Woltemade is at the moment.
I haven't had a chance to speak to you in a while, so I just wanted to ask if you were Newcastle, considering that he is such a different player to Alexander Isak, and it is a bit of a tactical gamble to have gone for him, would you have gone for him? And do you think this is a place in which, oh, you're smiling, so you might have not chosen him then?
No, look, I think if you're in the market for a centre forward, and a lot of clubs were, and you have a bit of money burning a hole in your pocket because you are clearly selling Isak on, they knew at that time that he was going to go, then I think it's understandable that that they looked at him very closely. But of course, it is a bit of a gamble, because the guy had only had 6 months at Bundesliga level before going to the Premier League, to a big club in the Premier League, a club with real ambition to at least make the top 4, to do well in the cup competitions. And I think there's a lot to ask for a centre forward who's at 22, still developing. It's one of my pet theories that centre forwards tend to need a bit more time. They peak a little bit later than, let's say, wingers or centre backs. I think they need that experience, they need that know-how, that kind of street smartness that you need to be really effective, and they buy the potential. But I think I'm already surprised. I'm already happy in the sense that I think his bedding in period has been shorter, and he's been more effective quicker than I thought. And if he can continue, and if Eddie Howe can continue to develop in the way he has developed other players really well in recent years, then they will look the smart ones, and other people might think that they're the idiots in the equation.
Rafa, you touched briefly on the words of Rummenigge. If you don't mind going back to it, you mentioned that Bayern pays properly, and the rest they just don't do it as it should. But I just wonder if his words express like a broader frustration, the fact that English clubs come outpay German teams, the fact that German young players or even players of any age leave far too early, perhaps, in his eyes. And if that feeling is the one of the old guard, or if the new directors think the same way.
it's a double-edged sword because a lot of people in Germany are very happy that the money from England is there and helps them to sell the likes of Ekitike and so on for huge money. I mean, Dortmund are a great example. Bayern don't tend to sell. Bayern have to compete and sometimes lose out, as they did with Wirtz. And you can maybe say Woltemade, even though it's more of a transfer fee issue. But the problem is more for the rest of the league. Bayern, in a sense, are isolated from that trend because they can still pay so much money that they can take Harry Kane from the Premier League, they can take Sadio Mane from the Premier League, they can take Luis Diaz from the Premier League. But the other teams are either sellers or have to almost develop talent with a view of then selling them on later on. And this is a big problem for the league in the long run because the accusation used to be, rightly or wrongly, that Bayern would target other teams to make them weaker and get their best players. Even if they don't do it, if they don't get any of these good players from Dortmund or Leverkusen or so on, they still tend to get stronger because they're the only team that can keep their own players and buy some players from the Premier League, whereas everybody else are net sellers in terms of talent and quality. So yes, there is a problem. I don't think Rummenigge is particularly concerned about it, apart from when Bayern are directly affected. But it is something that the league has to grapple with. And I think they haven't quite come to terms with it, or they're still sort of trying to figure out whether it's a net good thing that you can sell these players and reinvest, or if it's a problem for the league in the long run.
Well, let's talk about one of the players that Bayern Munich spent a lot of money on, Harry Kane. We joked a few weeks ago on EuroLeagues, around the time of the Ballon d'Or, that Harry Kane could win it if he kept scoring at this rate. It was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but he's a genuine contender. I know it's early days, but he scored 103 goals in 106 Bayern appearances, 19 goals in 12 games for England and Bayern this season, one every 52 minutes. Mina, that is astonishing, isn't it? Are you putting him up there as the best striker in terms of form at the moment in European football? Haaland, Mbappe, Kane? Who's at the top?
Haaland is... It's difficult because he has so much to his game, Harry Kane. And I think it was also really interesting to hear Kingsley Coman speak to Rio Ferdinand on that podcast. And he was talking about playing alongside Harry Kane in comparison to playing alongside Lewandowski. And he said, where he had to provide Lewandowski and deliver for him at all times, Harry Kane has the ability to make other people look good because he is not just a striker. He's not just playing for himself. He's somebody who plays for the team. He provides for the team. He delivers assists, he play makes, and he makes the winger looks really good. And it just reminded me something about Pirlo when we used to say, is he the best ever? And when you ever used to say that to Andrea Pirlo, do you think you were the best ever midfielder? He goes, I was really lucky that I played with such good forwards because that's what makes me so good. But Harry Kane is that guy that just makes everyone look good. And the way that he is scoring right now, strikers are quite hard to find these days that are doing so well, other than Haaland and Mbappe are obviously on a class in the same class. But, once upon a time, he used to say, I want to be Ronaldo, I want to be Messi. And then we kind of did a little bit of oh, come on, who's going to be Ronaldo and Messi? But the kind of stats that he's providing right now, they are Ballon d'Or worthy. Of course, the Ballon d'Or we know only ever goes to the winners of either the Champions League or the World Cup or makes that. So it's got to be Bayern winning something. But I would say that if they did, then absolutely he's going to be the guy that wins it, because on current form, the way that he has also changed this season, and am I right in saying that I was looking at these heat maps that they had produced, and where it was more concentrated in obviously goal scoring and playing as a number 9. This year, he seems to be dropping back, helping out, and he's just everywhere now on the pitch. So it seems like every year, and that goes to your theory, Ralph, where as you get older, it's almost like you get better. And his intellect is just on another level. His sacrifices for the team is on another level. And the fact of the matter is that they're without Jamal Musiala, who is their chief creator and co. And having Harry Kane be able to deliver so much and almost take on that role as well as being the striker. Incredible stuff.
I offer an alternative theory of why Kane is scoring so much, but not just Kane, Haaland as well, Mbappe, and how in the past it would have been Cristiano, Messi, because, of course, and Lewandowski, and that's it. And there'd be a big gap between them and the rest. But I think we started a new trend of strikers scoring a goal per game. And given the amount of opportunities that we'll have in the big sides, I could even be bigger than that. And it's down to the fact that how teams play. First of all, there's more man-to-man marking, which creates more open situations, more space used by these talented players. Teams get in the build-up, take more risks. So again, an opportunity if you steal the ball to score, and you've got the talent, you will do that. The teams that are not the biggest ones, the smaller ones, the medium ones as well, when they play the Bayern Munich or the Manchester Cities, they defend very, very deep. And more teams like Bayern, like Manchester City, are prepared to beat low blocks. And that has to do as well with the movement of the players. There's much more layers of knowledge into the likes of any striker. There is more individual work as well. And that fits with that trend of managers that want to impress and play offensively, especially in bigger sides, because that gives you not only prestige, but the possibility of continuing at this level, because all these big sides want to play offensively. So I think we're going to see more and more of those strikers that score a goal a game.
And just quickly, Rafa, because we're going to move on to talk about one of my favourite subjects, Gennaro Gattuso. But how is Kane viewed now at Bayern Munich compared to Robert Lewandowski?
Well, Mina hinted at it in the Kingsley Coman interview, which I think is quite reflective of the mood that Lewandowski was admired, was respected, but wasn't quite loved and appreciated to the extent that Kane is. Because Kane, on top of everything we talked about, has this kind of humility that is almost extremely rare, if not never apparent for centre forwards. I mean, we associate centre forwards with a lot of things, but not humility and selfishness. And he has that in his game. He thinks about the team first. He thinks about winning first. He defends so much. He's in his box half of the game when Bayern are leading and they defend deep. He puts in tackles against, the opposition left winger and things like that. And people are just crazy for him. And he said just the other day that he feels Vincent Kompany has unlocked another level in his game. And while all these things that Guillem mentioned are true, I still think that with the Bayern team that there's lacks Musial at the moment and isn't in terms of the depth that strong, he plays like 3 or 4 players at the same time on the pitch. And that makes him so invaluable at the moment.
But now to one of my favourite EuroLeague's characters, Gennaro Gattuso. Italy beat Israel 3-0 on Tuesday to make it 4 wins from 4 for Gattuso in charge of the team. So they've booked a playoff place. Will Italy then qualify for a World Cup after missing out on the last 2 editions? I remember bringing this up. I'm not sure if any of you were on the panel actually on the EuroLeagues, where James Horncastle, he sighed when I got really excited about Gennaro Gattuso being named Italy manager. And I said, why are you upset, James? Why are you not happy? And he said, it's because I want Italy to get to the World Cup. And like a lot of people, he thought it would be a bit of a car crash. But so far, so good, Mina.
So far, so good. But I echo James's sentiments. When you told me Gattuso was coming, not you specifically, but when I heard about Gattuso being the guy in line, it just sort of seemed to, I don't know, demonstrate the giant collapse of Italy at this moment. There were so many clips going around social media right now about that Italian team in 2002, the one that, the one just before they won the World Cup. And we're talking about Paolo Maldini and Cannavaro and Nesta and Totti and Del Piero. It was just an embarrassment of riches. And now when you look at Italy and over the last few seasons, even though they won the Euros, there's just this fall about it. But at least one thing you could always rely on is that Italy created these great coaches, and yet none of these great coaches were called upon or succeeded. Spalletti didn't succeed. And then this has kind of sent me on a spin recently, because I firmly believe that you are as good as your coach. And so Italy's doing well. So what does that say? Is Gattuso actually a really good coach?
Yeah, what's he doing well then? Come on, where's the positivity? What are the positives here?
It's like 16 goals, right? They can't, it's a disaster because they lose the ball. They are so frail against counterattacks. When Donnarumma made a mistake for Estonia to get a goal in the end, they looked terrified after that. So even though right now what Gattuso's done really well, so to his credit, what he's done really well is created a united team. This is a side that seems really hungry at the moment, that is full of rage in the way that it needs to be, that's fighting for the jersey in a way that we never saw under Luciano Spalletti. Spalletti was always considered this great tactician, but we always had question marks about his ability to really spur on a side. And if you look at his Napoli team, a lot was made about how good Victor Osimhen at the time was in instilling that mentality of we can win it this year, we can win with Napoli. And so that was Spalletti's flaw. And so what Gattuso's come and done is just screamed at them and told them how much they need to fight for this jersey. And it's like by osmosis, they have all of this passion inside of them and are playing for him, and they admire what he has achieved with the Italian national team. And you can see that they're hungry for goals at all times. But the team has no balance, and they are not very good at really understanding the game in the way that you need them to. If you look at, for example, the way that they played against Israel, and there was a lot being made about this game. You would think that they were playing Estonia and Israel, but that you thought that they were going to play like France and Spain at this point. I mean, you should be beating Estonia very easily, so you shouldn't be so scared. And with Israel, it's a harder team, but you should still be winning these matches without this being such a kerfuffle. And yet Israel had loads of chances. They had the counterattacks. They rotated their players so well that it sort of threw them for a loop at a while, because Tonali didn't know, wait, what's going on here? But the difference is playing with two strikers, having strikers who are scoring goals, Guillem. So maybe it is about the way that people are playing right now. But, you know, when you're talking about the fact that football has changed, I was thinking, God, scoring goals for Italy was so hard. But under Gattuso, it looks so easy.
Rafa is desperate to come in here. Can I make a prediction as to what he's going to say?
Go on, then.
They haven't played any decent teams yet. Is that what you're going to say?
Well, I would say, I mean, doing well is relative here, isn't it? I mean, they lost 3-0 against Norway. They had that crazy match away, in inverted commas, to Israel, the 5-4. And, of course, they've beaten Estonia and Moldova.
But Norway was under Spalletti. So this
Yeah,
we'll
okay,
see more
fine.
now.
But that's fine. But, I mean, Italy doing well is not coming second. Italy doing well is first. And the problem that they have is that even if they win the next two games, they can still finish second, because Norway's goal difference is, of course, so superior. And that's the ultimate, that's the first tiebreaker. There's 16 goals to the good. So I think it all looks as if it's going to be another playoff game against the likes of, I don't know, North Macedonia or so on. And then we'll see what happens. We'll see how good they really are.
That's the scary part, right? It's like, that, we say small games, but Italy has lost to North Macedonia, Switzerland. I mean, that's a harder team, but it's just that they, even against the smaller sides, they haven't shown the best. So maybe now, although the way that they lack that balance worries me. They are reckless. They look tactically naive at times. So, but hey, listen, maybe they'll be a bit like Barcelona. Well, they'll just outscore the opponent, but without much of the beauty.
Serie A, though, returns this weekend. And I want to talk, Mina, about Roma, second in the table. So Gian Piero Gasperini has made a great start since leaving Atalanta to take over the club, which kept sacking managers. 5 coaches since 2024. Did you expect such an instant impact? Because I looked at this and I thought it will work, but it might take some time because of the tactics and the changes that he had to make. But straight away, he's made a positive impact.
He has made a positive impact. He did an interview the other day in Italy, and they asked him about... usually with him, because of his style of tactics, you would imagine it would take ages, and they've been called reckless before. It's too attacking at times, but it seems like he's learned from that in a way where he's decided to go to Roma and make them defensively solid. So what this side looks like right now is not at all a normal Gasperini team. This is a team that looks like it's just... it's still Claudio Ranieri's side from last season with just a hint of Gasperini in it. I mean, if you look at the stats, they're pressing that bit higher, but still quite balanced. The strikers, then they've yet to learn how to flood the box and actually create those overwhelming attacking displays that he was so famous for when he was at Atalanta. They are not aggressive in the same way. They're not tenacious in the same way. They're not man marking in the same way. So this is not yet a Gasperini team. So I'm reluctant to really judge them at the moment because he's not changing too much straight away, nor does he have a team that's really created for him at the moment. He doesn't have a striker that he actually needs and one who will provide the kind of game that he needs. Dovbyk is not it. Ferguson is not it. And so you feel like right now with the way that they're going forward, he's having to hope that Dybala is going to come through for them. But Dybala misses more games than he plays. So he's not somebody that you can depend on. So attacking wise, this is a team that's yet to really grasp all of his ideals going forward. But what they do have is the best defense in Serie A. And that's carrying on actually from last season under Claudio Ranieri, where they had the best defense in the second half of the season and second overall. So he's made them a balanced unit and just try to work off what they're very good at now and slowly try to introduce his own ideals into it. But I have to say they've also been lucky. And if you look at, for example, the match against AS Verona, look at the kind of shots they're conceding, and their XG stats would say to you that they're good opportunities that they are conceding, which means that are they overachieving at the moment? And you have to say they are so lucky defensively to have a goalkeeper like Miles Fila, because Fila has been astonishingly good. He's got the highest save percentage on shots on target among all goalkeepers in Europe's top 5 leagues. And that stands at 93% at the moment. He plays like a veteran. Anything that goes past that defense, he's like a wall. And if you watch that game against AS Verona, it was an interesting one because Verona was so good. And yet he managed to rescue them by doing a save with his face. He saved with his actual face. And he is the difference maker right now. And Gasperini actually said, one of the reasons we are doing so well, you can call it luck or you cannot, but we have a strong defense. And much of that is down to the fact that I've got the best goalkeeper right now. And that has also helped them because we know in Serie A that in the, 18 of the last 19 leagues, the best defense wins the title, other than the time that Juventus had won it. And so that's what he's working on now. So but against Inter, this is where we can judge better because this is the first big team that they're going to play against. And we need to see whether or not they're actually as good as they have looked when they're playing the smaller sides.
Mina, talk to us about Matthias Solé, who in the lack of strikers scoring, you got an offensive midfielder that's doing so, 3 goals, 2 assists in 6 games for Roma, and finally looking like the player that they thought they had bought. And can you convince him to be an Italian international, or is that too late?
No, for that last point, Scaloni has said that he has kept a specific eye on Sule and that he definitely wants to integrate him within his side, but just to give him time, he wants to see how he develops at Roma. I think Gasperini is exactly the right coach to get the best out of him in ways that they've been too dependent on Dybala before. And Sule has taken his chances when he can, but he's been inconsistent in form. So now under Gasperini, and considering the problems that they do have going forward, he is showing the power that he has and how much he's growing. It's about speed of thought and speed of play, that he's got to master the different phases of the game. But he has all that raw talent. He just needs to channel it better. And I think that he can absolutely do that under Gasperini. So I firmly believe that Scaloni will call him up soon and Italy will not be able to get him to play for their side.
We spoke to Dr. Carl on the last EuroLeagues about the Swedish underdogs Mjällby, who haven't won the league yet, but they can do so by winning on Monday night. And what about this international break? We had Cape Verde qualifying for the World Cup for the first time. And now we're going to speak to a player whose dream of doing the same thing for an even smaller nation is still alive. The Faroe Islands beat Czech Republic 2-1 on Sunday to put themselves within a point of the playoff spots with 1 match remaining in the group. This is astonishing because Faroe Islands has a population of just under 55,000, so they would be by far the smallest nation to ever qualify for the World Cup. Delighted to say that the player of the match from that Czech Republic game, Odmar Faero, joins us now on EuroLeagues. Odmar, thanks for joining us. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell us, first of all, what were the celebrations like after that game to keep the dream alive, to beat Czech Republic 2-1?
I think it was a great experience all around, but I think a lot of the players were thinking, unfortunately, it's a Sunday night, so there's not going to be much happening in the city afterwards. But no, we had a nice evening together and spoke about about the events of the match and the wave that we're on at the moment. And after that, I think a lot of us went to work the next day.
Yeah, I have to talk about this. You went to work the next day, didn't you? So what time did you start work? Tell us about what job you have.
I work at a furniture store here on the islands, and I didn't realize it, or I didn't know at the time. But when I checked out of the hotel and went home, then all of the players, I think they sat on and had a few glasses of wine and good chat, and I raced home to my family and went to work early the next morning at 8 o'clock.
8 a.m. in the office after beating Czech Republic, after being man of the match. You were in the office at 8 a.m.
Yeah, it's true.
That's amazing. And as you say, all the other players have day jobs as well. Is that correct? Most of them, are any of them professionals in the team? Full
Yeah,
professionals?
we have a few professionals in the team playing in the likes of Iceland and Denmark and Norway, but I'd say at the moment it's roughly a 50-50 split.
All the guys and Mina want to chat to you as well. But I just want to ask, what has happened to give you this success, to make it that Faroe Islands have won 3 in a row? Because I think I'm right in saying that Faroe Islands had never won more than 2 games in any qualification campaign before, and you've won 4 this time. What has changed? What's the recent success down to?
It can be any one of a number of things, or a combination or culmination of a number of things. I think one thing is around about a year ago we changed the managerial team, the manager and the assistant coach, and appointed a local combination of coach and assistant coach. And since then, I think the feeling in the team and in the training camps has been a more Faroese localized feeling. And ever since then, the unity in the team has improved. And the stats will show that defensively, we've not been giving away many chances, conceding goals. And until recently, we've been hunting for some kind of big result. And now, thankfully, we got 2 in a row. So now we're just riding a wave and seeing how far it can take us.
Odmar, I don't want to be too presumptuous, but of course there is a chance that you might make it. Can you explain to us what it would mean for the Faroe Islands? And crucially, would you get 2 months off to actually go to the World Cup from your job, from your boss?
In terms of time off, I have a very flexible boss, so that wouldn't be a problem. But in terms of expectations and what would happen if we did reach a finals, I'm not sure that's sunk in. We've When we beat Montenegro in the first of the last 2 games, we hit 9 points, which was the record tally for a qualifier. And then in the next game, then we get 12 points. And at the moment, it's just kind of like uncharted territory. And at home against Croatia, it was a close game, funnily enough, and we lost 1-0 on that day. And I think our thoughts are kind of going back to situations in the away game against the Czech Republic and the away game against Montenegro, where we concede late and lose points. And I think the situation is now that we both have to win against Croatia, and we have to rely on results going our way. So I mean, you have to be realistic. It's looking difficult. It's possible, but should it happen, there would be a celebration like never before here on the islands. I'm sure of that.
Odmar, you explained very well the process that's taking you there, and it's got to do with tactics.
Yeah, I think you are right. But specifically at what point? We've been talking about now football the way it is nowadays. Then there's a lot of analysis and a lot of you get a lot of feedback, individual and collective. And when we look at the numbers, especially during this last campaign, what we see is, unfortunately, at the start we We lost our first two games narrowly. Had we been able to get a draw in one of those games, then now it would have been crucial points. Little did we know that then. But there are some key factors, such as the fact that we recently, should we lose, we don't lose by more than one goal. And most of our games are can go both ways right until the very end. And suddenly, we found out once you are tight in the defense and you give away a few chances, and then it suddenly clicks offensively also, and you then possess the ability to score more than one goal every game, then suddenly you have a good combination of various things, and then even the country of our size can beat a team like Montenegro 4-0. And after that game, I think even at halftime, we were just like, yeah, let's just keep going, doing the right things, doing the basics. And the way it is for us underdogs, if we can't afford to take our foot off the gas, so we only know how to give 100%. So once we get the bone between our teeth, then we just plow through. And now suddenly a bit of quality offensively is starting to shine through as well. So I think it's a little bit of those things that we're seeing now.
Odmar, you talk about being the underdog, and there must be a certain joy of being able to just enjoy the games and see yourself doing well and keep going. But do you think now you're going to enter into this with people saying there is qualification on the line? There's a real possibility you can make it, albeit slim, like you said. But is there now a little bit of pressure when it comes to playing these next match? Is it going to be a case of, oh, I've got to make everything right, and then the pressure is going to get to everyone?
I think in terms of pressure, it's a little bit early for us to learn how to handle that. Normal pressure, but there's always pressure on the international scene, but I don't think anyone's going to label us favorites or anything like that going away and expecting a result against Croatia. We know that in terms of now, as opposed to maybe 2-3 years ago, it's more of a possibility. And in terms of belief in the squad, there's a much bigger belief, and I think that's what's going to drive us, if anything, if we're going to get a result in that game, because that's if beating Montenegro 4-0 was big, then beating the Czech Republic was even bigger. And should we go on and get 3 points against Croatia, which is what will be required, then that would be even bigger. But I think it's just a sense of now we've proven to ourselves that we can do these things. The next step in the ladder, so to say, I think would be to go and challenge at least Croatia for a big part of the game, and at least make it uncomfortable for them. And if we do that, then we've done our side of the bargain. And who knows? Maybe a draw between Gibraltar and Czech Republic could happen. Who knows?
Anything could happen, as Cap Verde showed. Odmar, we can detect a Scottish accent. I think you grew up in Aberdeen, didn't you? Tell us about that. And if you got to the playoffs, you could draw Scotland, couldn't you? Would that be the dream scenario?
Yeah, I haven't actually looked at the possibilities of who we can draw and so on, but a few of my friends back home from Aberdeen were saying that it is a possibility, and I've been lucky enough to play against Scotland twice before. We had them in the qualifiers, I think 3 or 4 years back, and those were amazing experiences, especially having grown up in Scotland. Then that was huge. And I'm not sure how the nerves would be playing against Scotland when a place in the World Cup is on the line. Then I'm sure I would get some nerves, but that would be an amazing scenario.
Odmar, we'll be watching and really cheering you on. Thank you so much for joining us on EuroLeagues. All the best next month.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good luck.
That is Odmar Faero from the Faroe Islands. What an opportunity they have next month. They are still in it. It's a long shot, but maybe, just maybe. Let's end EuroLeagues by talking about Jude Bellingham. A lot has been said, a lot has been talked about after he was left out of Thomas Tuchel's England squad. So how big are the next few weeks for Jude Bellingham? Tuchel said this on Bellingham. He's an important player. He's a big player. The guys who are now here, they have the reward and they feel the reward, and it's now necessary I stay in touch with the other guys. If we invite them, we are sure they will buy in, or we will not invite them. Why would we? This is, how do you say, a non-negotiable. We'll get to Guillem in a moment for the Real Madrid perspective on this. But Rafa, you know Thomas Tuchel well. You've covered Thomas Tuchel's teams down the years. What do you think he was trying to do here with his comments about Jude Bellingham over the last couple of weeks?
It sounded to me like a thinly veiled warning that not just him, but everyone who is part of the team has to be a team player. And I think it illustrates the difference between club management and national team management, because even though you spend far less time with your players as a national team coach, the time you spend is a lot more intense because you're in camps, you are on top of each other for 2 weeks the whole time. And then, of course, if you go all the way, it can be up to 8 weeks in a big tournament. And if you feel that somebody brings too much ego into it, or maybe feels that special rules apply. Tuchel mentioned special rules applying to special players in his first answer at the beginning of the international break when he was asked about Jude Bellingham. Then I think national team managers are very wary of complicating their life, even if it means leaving superb players out. And Julian Nagelsmann did something similar, not the same magnitude, but he left out Leon Goretzka ahead of the Euros, and he talked about collective, match harmony, and really was quite hinting quite heavily that Goretzka was too much of a egotistical guy, or at least could not be trusted if he was to be substituted or perhaps not starting, not to affect the mood negatively. He's since been, of course, been brought back. So I don't think it's terminal. I don't think it is a sense of, Tuchel doesn't like Bellingham or doesn't think he's good enough. But it sounded to me very much conveniently disguised with the fact that he wasn't fully fit and so on, which is something he mentioned, of course, as well. Like a warning, not just to him, but to everyone, that the team will come first, even at the cost of maybe one or two big names missing out.
In the last couple of years, Jude Bellingham has been with managers that allow him to do whatever he wants on the pitch in a way because he resolves situations. So the more the team struggled, the more you saw Jude. That was with England and with Real Madrid. Now he's got two coaches that are asking him to do less to be more in the side. But while one was happy in Xabi Alonso to have him around every single day, defining his role, probably in behind Vinicius and Mbappe, and what that means, obligations defensively, offensively. The other one seems quite okay with not having him, even though, physically he's not at his best. But as Rafi has just said, this was an opportunity for 10 days to actually have him and talk to him about what he wants of him. He's decided not to take that opportunity when he keeps talking about how little time manager of a national time has got. So I think you've got a manager that sees in Jude Bellingham an essential part of the team in Xabi Alonso, and another one who thinks, yeah, he can help me, but I'm not going to build a team around him. Perhaps even more, perhaps he's not an essential part of the team. It's going to be interesting to see how Jude Bellingham interprets that and reacts to it.
Sorry, Guillem, just one thing before I go into this, but Xabi Alonso got a little bit of stick for playing Bellingham against Atletico Madrid because it was seen that he wasn't yet ready to come on and be the player, considering that he was recovering from his injury, not yet at a full level, and this was a really important match to throw him on. So is that true, right?
Yeah, he started him, and also he was asked about it because it goes into what you're saying. Xabi Alonso was asked about it. If you had the Atletico Madrid game to play again, you've seen what Bellingham has done, will you use him? And he was like, no, you cannot look back. But he was trying to suggest that perhaps he wouldn't do it.
Yeah, just briefly to end, Rafa, you said he'll be back next. You expect Tuchel to call him up next international break, and it'll all be fine. It will be sorted.
I'm not so sure. I think he will be back if he's fully fit, of course. But I think Tuchel is making a point that this is going to be on my terms. He calls it the team terms, but really he's deciding what the team needs. And as we saw with Bayern, where he really went quite heavily against established players like Kimmich and Goretzka and said, basically, I need different players. He's not afraid to fight these battles. And especially as an England manager, when there's no contract, he doesn't have to play certain players because it's damaging the club and they pay a lot of money. These considerations don't apply. I think he's going to be very ruthless, very narrow-minded and focused on what he wants. And I think it does pose a problem as opposed to, in recent years where if you have a big name, you're always in the England squad. Tuchel feels the squad is now so good and has so much depth that maybe I can do without these guys, or at least I can draw a realistic sort of scenario of a warning to suggest that maybe I can do it without them to make sure that they sign up to what I really want from them.
Rafa, Honigstein, Guillem Balague, Mina, Rzouki, thank you very much. Steve Crossman will be back with EuroLeagues next week on 5 Live.
The Football Daily Podcast
on BBC Sounds.